All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Him to University Tuesday edition. Give me just a second here. All right. Today we're going to be in Joshua chapter number 9. And let me fix this lighting really quick. All right, there we go. Hopefully that's a little bit better. Today we're going to be in Joshua chapter number 9, and I called this video today "The Cost of Compromise." And before we get into this, I always want to give a shout out to my brothers Marcus and Brenton. I appreciate you guys for what you guys put in week over week. Again, I always say it, and it is the truth. Each time I say it, it's not a journey that one would want to take by themselves. And so I appreciate you guys for continuing to do the work individually in your own lives, and then as we bring it together collectively here on the platform. So I appreciate you guys for that. And I appreciate everybody for being on week over week supporting us. And so we thank you for that. So let's go ahead and pray, and then we will get into Joshua chapter 9. Lord, I thank you for your word. Lord, I thank you for the truth that is always before our eyes. And God, I ask that in this moment of us looking at Joshua chapter 9, Lord, that your word is always speaking, Lord, that our hearts are opened and positioned to hear what it is that you have to say. Lord, your word is a lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. And so, Lord, I pray that you help us to understand that to walk opposite of the way that your scripture is leading us is to walk in darkness. And walking in darkness sometimes results in us stumbling, groping around, trying to find our way, and even sometimes getting hurt. So, Lord, help us to walk in the light of your truth as we aim to be molded into the image of your Son, Jesus Christ. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Let's see here. Here we go. What's good, bro? Good to see you. Hey, Ms. Williams, good to see you as well. Thank you for being on. All right. So Joshua chapter number 9. Joshua chapter number 9. Again, called this video "The Cost of Compromise." Joshua is now leading the conquest of Canaan, as it is often referred to. And so he and the Israelites have just come off. It's almost like a roller coaster if you look at it. They cross the Jordan in chapter 3. They go through circumcision and all of these things, preparing for the next steps. They take over Jericho in chapter 6, and then we're on this high, I guess you could say. But then we come crashing down in chapter 7 because of Achan's sin. So now they suffer loss at the hands of Ai in chapter 7. Chapter 8, we're going back up, and they are victorious over Ai, right? But we're still on this roller coaster because we're going to get into something today that's going to bring us right back down. And so it will come through the vein of compromise. So what is compromise, right? By definition, compromise as a noun, it says, is a weakening or a reduction of standards or principles, often for the sake of convenience or agreement. A weakening or reduction of standards or principles, often for the sake of convenience or agreement. And there have been several examples that we've seen of this. If you guys remember when Moses was to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, and he kept telling Pharaoh to let the people go, right? Okay, well, you guys can go over here and worship. Just don't go too far. Don't go outside of Egypt, but you can go kind of out here in the desert area, right? The Pharaoh trying to find ways to kind of give them what they want, but then also maintaining control of the situation, right? So that's what you would call a compromise. Now, Moses didn't give into that, but that's one example of a compromise. Even when Lot and Abram separated back beginning in Genesis chapter 14, it says that Lot pitched his tent near Sodom. But when you go from chapter 14, you get to chapter 19, not only did Lot pitch his tent near Sodom, he was inside the city. So over time, small decisions, small compromises, it led Lot to being in a very dangerous situation where he had to be rescued by the angel of the Lord, but at the same time, it cost him something, right? What had happened? His wife looked back; she got turned into a pillar of salt. All right. So again, compromise is always costly, always. All right. So we're gonna look at this situation with Joshua today, and hopefully we're able to glean some truth from this passage, because the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, every day we're faced with an opportunity to compromise as a disciple, right? Whether that be in your personal life, your professional life, your social life, whatever, there's always opportunities for compromise, for us to just kind of lower the standard a little bit, for us to just kind of, okay, well, we'll give in here, we'll give in there. You give a little bit, I'll give a little bit, and then let's compromise and let's make this mutually beneficial. The reality is, you and I, and really it's the compromises of our flesh, right? We always lose when we compromise with the flesh. Always. It may appear mutually beneficial. Long term, it's never mutually beneficial. All right, so let's get into this. Verse number 1. Let's see here. Yep. Okay, so verse number 1, it says, "Now all the kings west of the Jordan River heard about what had happened. These were the kings of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, who lived in the hill country, in the western foothills, and along the coast of the Mediterranean Sea, as far as the Lebanon mountains. These kings combined their armies to fight as one against Joshua and the Israelites." Again, Joshua's making this conquest, right? And so now all of these kings have heard what has happened, what Joshua did to Ai. And now they're like, now listen, we are not going to take them on one by one. So let's come together, combine forces, and then let's make an attempt to take Israel out, right? Verse 3 says, "But when the people of Gibeon, heard what Joshua had done to Jericho and Ai, they resorted to deception to save themselves. They sent ambassadors to Joshua, loading their donkeys with weathered saddlebags and old patched wineskins. They put on worn-out patched sandals and ragged clothes, and the bread they took with them was dry and moldy. When they arrived at the camp of Israel at Gilgal, they told Joshua and the men of Israel, 'We have come from a distant land to ask you to make a peace treaty with us.' The Israelites replied to these Hivites, 'How do we know you don't live nearby For if you do, we cannot make a treaty with you. Okay. Now, few things to consider here. Verse 1 says, now all the kings west of the Jordan River, right? So when they crossed the Jordan, everything to the west is what was supposed to be conquered. That's what the Lord told Joshua. It's what the Lord told Moses, right? This is the land that I'm giving you guys. So for anybody to approach them in that area, well, now hold on. You people are from the areas we're supposed to be conquering, right? And so the first thing that I want to point out about compromise is this. The cost of compromise is this, that you and I are not to entertain compromise. Don't even entertain it, right? We get here to verse 6. Verse 6 says that these people, they put on these worn out clothes, they did all these different things, and they presented themselves to Joshua and the Israelites. The interesting thing is, yes, number one, don't entertain compromise. But if you and I are not doing the work in private, and here's what I mean. If we're not doing the work in private, listening to the Spirit, following his leading, allowing him to shape our discernment, right? We'll get caught up. We'll get caught up entertaining moments of compromise, because here's the reality. Compromise never shows up and says, hey, and announces itself and waves at you and says, hey, I'm here to get you to compromise. It never shows up like that. Compromise never reveals its true intentions. Never. It never shows up and says, hey, I want you to compromise in your faith. Hey, I want you to compromise in your belief system. Hey, I want you to compromise and give into your flesh. It never shows up like that. Never reveals its true intentions. But it's always disguising itself as something good. Again, what did it say? That these people, these were kings, right? With these people, according to history, Gibeon was like out of the 5, Gibeon, I believe, was the largest of the of those 5 kings, or close to. It was definitely a larger city than Ai, right? And so again, these people resorted to deception because they wanted to be saved, right? So again, they disguised themselves as poor and all of this, and needing assistance, right? Again, ladies and gentlemen, even in our own lives, compromise will always disguise itself as something good, or something that is harmless, something that's not really a big deal. But as we're going to see here in a little bit, it does turn out to be a big deal. And we're going to see the main problem with why this became an issue for Joshua and the people. So they show up and they ask to have a peace treaty, right? Now, this is interesting because in chapter number 8, at the end of B's chapter from Thursday, what did Joshua just do? Joshua, they just renewed the Lord's covenant on Mount Ebal. Verse 34, it says, Joshua then read to them all the blessings and curses Moses had written in the book of instruction. Every word of every command that Moses had ever given was read to the entire assembly of Israel, including the women and children and the foreigners who lived among them. It is not coincidental, ladies and gentlemen, that after the victory of Ai, that now Joshua, the Lord has Joshua renew this covenant. Why? Because God knew what was coming in chapter 9. God knew when they wanted Ai, and that he's having Joshua build him an altar, and they're renewing the covenant. They're going over everything again, everything that Moses had said. That's because the Lord knew what was waiting on them in this very next chapter, in this very next scene of Israel's life. And that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, we have to be 100% clear about this. God is always preparing us for what's next. Now, if we fail to see it, that's on us. But God is always preparing us for what is next. So what's one of the things that Moses mentioned? Well, let's go to Exodus chapter number 34. We can actually go to chapter 23, then we'll go to chapter 34. So chapter number 23, verse number 31, it says, "And I will fix your boundaries from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea." We just read this. "And from the eastern wilderness to the Euphrates River. I will hand over to you the people now living in the land, and you will drive them out ahead of you." It goes on to say, "Make no treaties with them or their gods. They must not live in your land, or they will cause you to sin against me. If you serve their gods, you will be caught in the trap of idolatry." So there it is, Exodus 23. Moses says, don't make any treaties with the people in the land that God is giving to you. You go down to verse 34, after the golden calf incident, the breaking of the stone tablets and all of this, we get down to verse number 12. Let's go to verse number 11. But listen carefully to everything I command you today. Then I will go ahead of you and drive out the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. Be very careful to never to make a treaty with the people who live in the land where you are going. If you do, you will follow their evil ways and be trapped. So again, God is making it very clear, has been making it very clear from the beginning, don't make any treaties with these people. And it didn't say these people came from the east. It didn't say they came from the south. They came from the west. They came from the exact area that you are supposed to be conquering, right? And so when we're at this situation in Joshua chapter 9, and these men have presented themselves, again, God has already prepared Joshua for this moment, but they're going to miss it. And again, compromise never reveals its true intentions. And now they've begun to entertain compromise. They've begun to have conversations with compromise. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, even if it looks good, even if it looks harmless, even if it's, well, I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Let me just get some more information, to see what's kind of going on. Something on the inside of us should be going off and saying, hey, hold on. That's a red flag. That's a red flag. But if we're not doing the work in private, learning how to be led by the Spirit, learning to even listen to the Spirit, then what we're doing is we're dulling that voice. And now we're giving more into our flesh and what our flesh wants. And so now when compromise presents itself, it's not that big of a deal. It's just one little decision over here, but it ends up costing us later on. So let's continue to look at this. Verse 7, they're entertaining it. Verse 8 says, they replied, we are your servants. Now, look at this. These men, they continually deflect. They ask them a very direct question in verse 7. How do we know you don't live nearby? For if you do, we cannot make a treaty with you. Here it is. We are your servants. Again, compromise, putting on as though, listen, I'm here for you. I'm here to make you feel better. I'm here to make your life better, right? Again, compromise is directly associated with convenience. Oh no, I'm here to make this really convenient for you. This decision, this will, this will make your life real easy. This will make you feel better. This will help you get through the day. Whatever your vice is, whatever your compromise is, it again does not reveal its true intentions. So these guys were asked a very direct question. How do we know that you don't live nearby? And then they say, We're your servants. Okay. Here goes Joshua. But who are you? Joshua demanded. Where did you come from? They answered, your servants have come from a very distant country, deflecting again, not revealing their hand. We have heard of the might of the Lord your God and all he did in Egypt. We have also heard what he did to the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, King Sihon of Heshbon and King Og of Bashan, who lived in Ashtaroth. So our elders and all of our people instructed us, take supplies for a long journey. Go meet with the people of Israel and tell them, we are your servants. Please make a treaty with us. This bread was hot from the ovens when we left our homes, but now, as you can see, it is dry and moldy. These wineskins were new when we filled them, but now they are old and split open, and our clothing and sandals are worn out from our long journey. Here it is. Let's look at this. Here's the next thing about compromise. Compromise looks and it sounds good. And them wanting servants expose the hearts of the Israelites, 1000%. Compromise looks and it sounds good. It says all the right things. Listen, they begin to give this pseudo fear of the Lord. They begin to say all the right things. Listen, we heard about the might of the Lord your God, everything that he did to the kings over here, all of this, and it begins to, oh, okay, all right, well, okay, I hear what you're saying. You're saying the right things. You're looking good. Let's see. You said that it was a really long journey, and I've got the proof right in front of my eyes that the wineskins are old. You've got on tattered clothing. So, man, what I'm seeing with my eyes and what you're saying with your words, it's making sense. So the danger at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, is that Joshua and the people are beginning to lean to their own understanding. They're looking at the situation. They're hearing what's being said. They're hearing the deception. The deception is matching what they're seeing with their eyes. And they're beginning to lean to their own understanding in this moment. And it's going to cost them. So I want to go to, again, I want to go to 2 Corinthians chapter 11 very quickly, because Paul, in this chapter, Paul is dealing with false teachers, right? These are the men who compromise the faith. These are men who teach the opposite of the truth about Jesus Christ. And he makes this point about Lucifer as it pertains to false teachers. And I believe it's very important, even in this moment with these Gibeonites. He says in verse number 12, but I will continue doing what I have always done. This will undercut those who are looking for an opportunity to boast that their work is just like ours. These people are false apostles. They are deceitful workers who disguise themselves as apostles of Christ. But I am not surprised. Even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. So it is no wonder that his servants also disguise themselves as servants of righteousness. So again, I draw this comparison because these Gibeonites are presenting themselves as though they are one way, right? Listen, we're tired from the journey. We're your servants. We're poor. We really need your assistance, right? But the whole time it's a ruse. The whole time it's a lie. The whole time it is a compromise. And even for us, ladies and gentlemen, if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves compromising with our flesh. The enemy will put things in front of us. It looks good. It sounds good. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I can kind of see how that's making sense. And the more you entertain those thoughts, the more you entertain what's in front of you, the more likely you are to make a decision that's going to put you in a situation that's not that good, a very uncomfortable situation, a situation where you thought you had to have faith before, but now you really got to have faith to deal with where you are now. So let's keep moving with Joshua, because again, this is about to expose the whole kit and caboodle in this next verse. It says, so the Israelites examined their food. Okay, I'm going to pause there. So now we've gone from a conversation, right? Gone from conversation, entertaining the compromise, to now, okay, you know what? Let's examine the food. Let's see what's going on. Another translation says they took some of the provisions that they brought and offered them friendship. So again, they brought them gifts, right? Here's some provisions, because we just want to show you that we're your servants, right? Again, compromise will offer itself to you as though it's something good. So now we've gone from participating in a conversation, entertaining a conversation, to now we are partaking, right, of what is being offered to us. Okay, this is a very, very slow process, but again, it's in line completely with James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. Desire, right? We are all led away by our own evil desires. And when desire has been fully conceived, it gives birth to sin, and sin leads to death, right? So again, now they've begun to take some of the provisions, and the rest of the verse says this: and foolishly did not ask for the counsel of the Lord. This is the entire problem. But let's read verse 15. Joshua made peace with them and made a covenant treaty with them to let them live, and the leaders of the congregation of Israel swore an oath to them. Now, why? This is the whole problem here, is that they began to entertain this conversation from these men. They began to partake in the provisions that were brought. They began to believe the story. Why? Because they did not consult the Lord. And here's another thing. I want to go to James chapter 1, and then I'll make this point. James chapter 1 says this, verse 2. It says, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. Sorry, I don't want to go there yet. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 3. That's where I want to be. Proverbs chapter 3. And it says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. Why is that important in this moment? Because if we want to run the tape really quick, we can go from Joshua chapter 1 all the way here to chapter 9. And in each instance of Joshua's leadership, God has always spoken to him. In chapter 1, he tells him in verse number 6, he says, be strong and courageous, for you are the one who will lead these people to possess all the land I swore to their ancestors that I would give them. He goes on to encourage him to be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the instructions that Moses gave you. Do not deviate from them, turning either to the right or to the left. Then you will be successful in everything that you do. He tells him to study, right? The book of instruction. And then you get on to chapter 3, when they're getting ready to cross the Jordan. The Lord speaks to him again before he gets ready to make that decision, to tell him what he needs to do. And then you get down to verse number You get down to, chapter number 6, when they're getting ready to take over Jericho. What does the Lord do? He gives Joshua instruction. Hey, this is what I want you to do. March around the city 6 times, right? 1 time each day, and then 7 times on the 7th day. Then you get down here to the issue with Ai, right? You get to chapter 8, the Lord tells him, verse number 1, do not be discouraged. Take all your fighting men and attack. So again, the Lord has been speaking specifically to Joshua before all of these major moments. So when you get here to chapter 9 and a situation presents itself, God is not saying anything to you, Joshua. And again, I'm not armchair quarterbacking Joshua saying you should have made this play, that play. No, we're just observing, right? But here's the truth. When something that has been happening normally does not happen, it may be an opportunity for us to step back and reevaluate and say, okay, now hold on, something's going on here. Because before every single moment that I've been leading the people of Israel, God has spoken to me and told me about this. God has told me, okay, this is how I want you to navigate, right? This is the decision I need you to make. Tell the people this, tell the people that, go this way, don't go that way, right? God has been very clear. God has been very specific. So in this moment, these men present themselves. Hold on, the Lord ain't telling me something. I need to pause. I need to go see what's going on. But in this moment, Joshua and the people, they became dependent on their own understanding. The things that they saw with their eyes. Oh, okay, well, let's see the tattered clothing, the patches, the busted wineskins, and these guys do look like servants. Yeah, and you're skipping over all the details. The fact that these men did not tell you where they came from. They deflected every single time you asked them a question, right? Oh, it's just a distant country, just a distant country. Nobody's picking up on these things. But that's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, when we fail to include God in our decision making, we will be taken captive by good sounding words, by pseudo looking right behaviors. It's like, oh, okay, well, okay, that looks good. But when you don't seek the Lord before you make a decision, it's going to cost you. And God had been speaking to Joshua very specifically. And part of me now, when we read chapter 8, the fact that he just went over everything again, that was God preparing Joshua for this moment. And so here's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. It may not always be the audible voice of the Holy Spirit speaking to you. You may have been reading something or something popped up that reminded you of a scripture or whatever, and that may have came to you right before you're presented with a situation. Either way, it's still God speaking to you. But if you find yourself a situation coming up and it's like, hold on, this don't look right. What's going on here? The move is always seek the Lord. But now Joshua failed to ask the Lord for wisdom, because here's the truth. Had Joshua asked him, Lord, these men just showed up. They said that they're from some distant country and they want us to make a treaty with them. More than likely, the Lord would have told him, don't make a treaty with them, or he would have just restated specifically what he said when he spoke through Moses, which is, again, don't make a treaty with any people living in this land. And again, these are all the clues that aren't being adhered to because you're functioning in your own understanding. These men are presenting themselves as servants. They're poor looking. They're tattered clothing, all of this. Oh man, maybe they didn't come from this land. Okay. And so now Joshua has foolishly made an oath with these people. Now he has given them a peace treaty, which is again a direct violation of what God told them not to do. Okay. So let's go. So the Israelites examined their food, but they did not consult the Lord. Then Joshua made a peace treaty with them and guaranteed their safety, and the leaders of the community ratified their agreement with a binding oath. Now in Numbers chapter 30, and we'll get there in a second. 3 days after making the treaty, they learned that these people actually lived nearby. These were like just a few miles away from where Joshua and them were. The Israelites set out at once to investigate and reach their towns in 3 days. The names of these towns were Gibeon, Kephirah, Beeroth, and Kirath Jearim. But the Israelites did not attack the towns, for the Israelite leaders made a vow to them in the name of the Lord, the God of Israel. The people grumbled against their leaders because of the treaty, but the leaders replied, "Since we have sworn an oath in the presence of the Lord, the God of Israel, we cannot touch them." So now when we fail to consult the Lord in our decision making, sometimes it can lead us to entering into an agreement with somebody that now we can't get out of. See, because they swore in the name of the Lord. And for one to swear in the Lord's name and then break the covenant, that's a reflection on who God is. And God will not have anyone messing over his name like that. It's very important, because even what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 5, he says, don't swear by heaven, don't swear by anything on earth, don't even swear by God who is in heaven. He says, let your yes be yes, let your no be no. To be a person of integrity to such the degree that you don't have to swear by all these different things to add credibility to your name, right? Because for the Lord, when he told them, if you take a vow, you cannot break that vow. It's better that you don't take a vow at all than to make one and break one, because you are reflecting the character of God, and God does not change and he does not break his vows. But these people failed to consult the Lord, and now they foolishly entered into a covenant. And now that the covenant has been made, isn't that always how it happens? You make the decision, you compromise, and then the real intentions of the compromise come out later. And you're like, man, I didn't even know. Had I known that, I wouldn't have made that. We can all say that, right? Hindsight is 2020. Had we known this was waiting on the other side, well, I would have never made that decision. Well, had you consulted the Lord and waited for him to give you an answer, well, maybe you wouldn't be in this situation. But now the children of Israel have made the decision, they've compromised, they've sworn oath, and guess what? Now they're stuck with the people. Now they're stuck with the people. And again, the only choice that they have here, verse 20 says, this is what we must do. We must let them live, for divine anger would come upon us if we broke our oath. It's crazy, because now the issue is between the Israelites and the Lord, not the Israelites and the people and the Gibeonites. No, we made an oath in the Lord's name. He's holding us accountable for the decision that we made, for the oath that we made, for the covenant that we made. It's not even about this person over here. It's not about the Gibeonites anymore. We made a decision. And so now, because we're his people, we have to honor our word to these people. Crazy. So now them not seeking the Lord has gotten them in a position that they can't get out of. Verse 21 says, let them live. So they made them woodcutters and water carriers for the entire community, as the Israelite leaders directed. Joshua called together the Gibeonites and said, why did you lie to us? Why did you say that you live in a distant land when you live right here among us? May you be cursed. Now, hold on, Joshua. Easy. From now on, you will be servants who cut wood and carry water for the house of my God. I get it that you're frustrated, right? And isn't that always how it happens? Compromise shows up. We make a decision. Well, why did you do that? Why did you? I was just playing my part. You gave in and compromised. Instead of looking inside and saying, well, now hold on, I should have consulted the Lord. I should have asked the Lord about this decision before I made it. But you always want to blame the compromise. You want to blame the participant in your compromise. And it's like, well, that ain't got nothing to do with them. No, this is between you and the Lord. Right? So now Joshua is upset. Can't kill them. All right, cool. We're going to make them slaves, though. All right. So now they become woodcutters and they carry the water and all of this stuff in service to the temple of the Lord. It says, they replied, we did it because your servants were clearly told that the Lord your God commanded his servant Moses to give you this entire land and to destroy all the people living in it. So we feared greatly for our lives because of you. That is why we have done this. Now we are at your mercy. Do to us whatever you think is right. So Joshua did not allow the people of Israel to kill them, but that day he made the Gibeonites the woodcutters and water carriers for the community of Israel and for the altar of the Lord, wherever the Lord would choose to build it. And that is what they do to this day. So in this situation, we don't see any other moments where the Gibeonites come up as being a problem for the Israelites. So in this moment, what do? You've compromised, right? You've made the decision. What's next? The only thing that you can do now is endure the decision and honor the Lord. That's it. Endure the decision and honor the Lord. And so, again, we don't see anything else coming up about these Gibeonites. So one could look at this situation and say, yeah, well, Joshua did make a mistake by not consulting the Lord, but it did kind of work out for him. Listen, if that's the side of the line you want to skate on, well, it didn't turn out too bad for Joshua and them. Maybe, if I compromise and maybe, it'll work out where things. Please do not play that game. Please do not play that game. Let us err on the side of caution. And listen, if we're in a situation, something presents itself to us. Okay, Lord, how do you want me to handle this? And move from there. Not, well, it worked out for Joshua. They got some slaves now. They can, help them at the temple of the Lord. And it's not worth it. See, because Joshua's decision didn't just affect him and it didn't just affect the leaders. It says that the people began to grumble against him and against the leaders because of what they did. And so I want to go to, I want to be clear about that. Yeah, just because it didn't turn out too horrible in this instance for them, that's not a pass for us to play with compromise. And so now I want to go to James chapter 1. James chapter 1, I'd already began reading earlier. It says, verse 2, dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result, and do a thorough work so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking in nothing. If any of you lacks wisdom to guide him through a decision or circumstance, he is to ask of our benevolent God, who gives to everyone generously and without rebuke or blame, and it will be given to him. But he must ask for wisdom and faith without doubting God's willingness to help. For the one who doubts is like a billowing surge of the sea that is blown and tossed about by the wind. For such a person ought not to think or expect that he will receive anything from the Lord, being a double-minded man, unstable and restless in all his ways, and everything he thinks, feels, or decides. So verses 2 through 4 give us information, right? He says when you fall into various trials or testings, he says consider it a moment of great joy. Consider it an opportunity for you to grow, right? That the testing of your faith through what you are experiencing, it produces endurance and it will lead you to spiritual maturity, right? So those moments that come to you, there's your information. Now, verse 5 tells us what to do when the information is presented. When you fall into various testings and trials, okay, information has been presented. Now, verse 5 says, if you don't know what to do with the information, because again, this isn't a situation you manipulated by yourself. This isn't something that you caused to happen. You didn't have your hands in it. No, this is life bringing something to your doorstep. Now that it has presented itself, what do I do? Well, I need to get to verse 5 to figure out what I need to do. And what I need to do, according to verse 5, is I need to ask the Lord for wisdom. It says, if any of you lacks wisdom, to guide him through a decision or a circumstance. Okay, Lord, this has been presented on my doorstep. What do I need to do? What we don't need to do is lean on our own understanding. See, that word trust in Proverbs chapter 3, it in the original language, it means to put one's full weight upon. Think of a beam of a house or like a pole on the porch, and you lean on it and you just relax your shoulders, you relax your whole body, and you put your full weight up against that beam. Why? Because you trust that that beam is going to hold you up, right? When you sit down in a chair and you relax, or you sit down on your couch and you relax, and you to the point where I'm finna go to sleep. Why is it that you're able to be so comfortable? Because you trust that the chair is going to support, it's going to hold you up, right? You literally, they call it dead weight. When you just get to such a place of relaxation, you say, I trust the chair. That's the same measure of trust that we are to have in the Lord. Again, with all of your heart. Why with all of your heart? Because your actions flow from your heart, according to the 4th chapter, the 23rd verse, right? So with all of your heart, with every action, with every decision, trust the Lord. And what helps us trust the Lord? His wisdom. So if I'm here with the situation, it's in front of my face. Okay, what do? Lord, I need your wisdom. Okay, well, that wisdom is going to lead me to make decisions that show that I'm putting my full weight upon him and upon his word. And so, again, ladies and gentlemen, this situation for Joshua, it was costly. And then even when we get into chapter 10, we're going to see some other kings have a problem with this decision that Joshua made, and now they want to attack the people that Joshua saved. And guess what Joshua got to do? Joshua got to fight an unnecessary fight. And that's the thing, when we compromise, sometimes it'll put us in positions to have to deal with things unnecessarily that had otherwise we sought the Lord and said, Lord, okay, well, what decision do you want me to make? We could have avoided it. But here's the thing. Don't ask him and then not do what he tells you to do. You're fooling yourselves. Again, later on in James 1, it says, may we not just be hearers of the word, but doers of the word. So whatever he's telling you, don't just hear it and then say, okay, well, I'm going to do the opposite. No, because he will give you wisdom. And then guess what? He's going to hold you accountable for the wisdom that you did not use. Just ask Solomon. The whole book of Ecclesiastes is a man who asked the Lord for wisdom. And guess what? God gave it very, very generously to him. he didn't use the wisdom. And now Ecclesiastes is a man lamenting over his life because he failed to use the wisdom that God granted him. So yes, God will give it, but then there's also consequences when you don't use it. Okay. So again, we have to narrow this thing down really, really, really simple. 3 questions. The first one is, did I involve God in this decision? The second one, what did he say? And the third one, what did I do? When we're dealing with moments of compromise, and again, it's moments of compromise when it's pulling at your desires, when it's pulling at your flesh, right? When it's pulling us in a direction that's a little bit opposite. Again, these people came from the west. Hey, Joshua, these people are coming from the land that you're supposed to be conquering. But Joshua, you can't see it because you're caught up in their tattered clothes. You're caught up in the noise of what's being said to you, what you can see with your eyes. They're saying all the right things, Joshua. Everything's looking right. Oh, okay. Well, you guys must really be servants. You're caught up. Why? Because you're not seeking him. So, ladies and gentlemen, same for us. We'll get caught up in what we can see, what we can hear. And that's not faith. Faith is not about what we can see. Faith is not about anything that we can experience with our 5 senses. Not at all. And then it'll lead us into situations that we're going to have to endure unnecessarily. And so again, if you lack wisdom, because life is going to happen, situations are going to come, our flesh is going to be tempted, we're going to be tested. It's part of it, right? The enemy is going to disguise himself as an angel of light to try to pull at our flesh, to distract us, to get us to make decisions, to compromise. But if you're lacking wisdom, ask him, because he will give it. He'll show you, again, Proverbs 3:6, and he acknowledges the Lord and he will direct your paths. So here's my final thought. No days off. No days off. I don't want to say there should never be a day, because there will be multiple days that we fail to seek the Lord in decisions that we make. And again, some would want to take this and get really, really granular. Well, should I drink Nestle Pure Life water today, or should I drink Fiji water today? And listen, if you want to get granular, and if I'm being honest, that's silly. Okay, that's fine. Because here's the truth. The Lord, he doesn't care about whether you drink Nestle, Perrier, Fiji, Dejani, Deja Blue. That doesn't matter. Or should I wear my Converse or my boots today? That doesn't matter. But when your flesh is being tempted, when you're presented with a seemingly good opportunity, and it's like, oh well, this could be advantageous for me. I could, oh yeah. Right? Okay, Lord, what do I need to do here? Or again, if it's something just coming to your doorstep, you didn't manipulate the situation, but it's here. Okay, Lord, no, something looking off here. What's up? We can't take any days off from inviting the Lord into our space, because he'll let us make decisions. 1000%. He lets us make decisions all the time. And guess what? You make the wrong one, his grace is sufficient. But let's benefit from following the Lord instead of having to endure every decision. So again, no days off. No days off from, you're in a moment. Okay, Lord, I need your wisdom right now. Help me make the decision that honors you. And what's the decision that honors him? It's the decision that is made in faith by nothing you can experience with any of your 5 senses. Well, this looks good, Lord. Oh, that's the faith decision. Nope, it's not. It's the decision you can't see. You can't hear it. Nothing you're hearing sounds good about it. Oh, I don't feel good. That's right. Yeah, no, that's not faith. This feels like it's sturdy. Okay, so now I'm going to trust it. No. Sounds like I can trust it. No. Oh, it looks like I can trust it. No. It even smells like I can trust it. It may even taste like I can trust. No, that's not faith. Is it easy? 1000% not. Is it doable? Yes. Here's why it's doable. 2 Peter 2 Peter chapter 1. It says, for his divine power, chapter 1, verse 3, has bestowed on us absolutely everything necessary for a dynamic spiritual life and godliness through true and personal knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and excellence. Another translation says that God, through his divine power, has given us everything that we need to live a godly life. Message puts it this way: everything that goes into a life of pleasing God has been miraculously given to us by getting to know personally and intimately the one who invited us to God. Everything that goes into a life of pleasing him, and what's the one way we please him? Through faith. So he's already given us the power to do this. It's just, are we going to lean on our own understanding, or are we going to lean on the truth of his word? All right, let's pray. Lord, I love you and I thank you for your word. I ask God that this word fall on good ground, Lord, that it be received, and that over the next few days that it be watered. And we thank you because you're the one that gives the increase to our faith, to our development as disciples. And so, Lord, I ask now in this moment, God, that you would help us to place our full weight on you. As quickly as this video ends, Lord, we may be met with a test. And so I just ask, God, that you would guide us through these decisions, each and every decision, Lord, even if it's a situation that we've been in for a very long time and we think we might know how to navigate, God, based on what we see. Lord, help us to literally, if we have to, close our eyes and wait on you to lead us. That doesn't mean sitting around twiddling our thumbs, but as far as that specific decision is concerned, we don't make a decision until we hear from you. And so, Lord, I pray for my brothers and sisters. I pray for their strength. I pray for their endurance. Lord, I pray that when they are weak, you are strong. I pray, Lord, that they would know that your grace is sufficient, even in making the wrong decision. But Lord, that we just would not give in to compromise and foolishly enter into covenants and agreements with people. Lord, that now we have to endure those decisions, and the only responsibility is to endure and honor you. Thank you for the example of Joshua and the children of Israel in this moment. Thank you for the Gibeonites, showing us what compromise looks like, how it disguises itself, says all the right things, does all the right things, but it's only looking out for itself, which is an exact picture of our flesh. And so, Lord, be with Marcus and Brenton as they prepare for their days. They Val as well. God, give to them all that they need. Give them strength. Give them clarity. Give them boldness in their speech, God, to say the things that you've impressed upon their hearts through the scriptures, and help us to be receptive. We love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I appreciate you guys for being on. Marcus will be on tomorrow in chapter number 10. We'll hear from B in chapter number 11 on Thursday. And then I will see you guys back here on next Tuesday in chapter number 12. All right. You guys have a great day. Peace.